Ethan and I had been a couple, our love strong. After a short time apart in a long-distance relationship, I returned, ready to marry him, only to discover that he had already registered his marriage with another woman. He regretfully told me that Rachel had made a bet with someone, and he had only gone through with the marriage to go along with her. He swore there was nothing between them and that they would divorce soon. To make up for his mistake, he said that, as a man who had now been divorced, he would give me an extra share of company equity. He held my hand tightly, his face, usually cold, softening like a spoiled child. "Baby, you're someone who always puts her career first. You won't care about little things like this. Right?" "Yes, but not entirely. If all these little things didn't exist, then there would be nothing to care about, wouldn't there?" The truth was, I had come back earlier than planned just to surprise Ethan. When my key wouldn't open the door, I didn't think much of it, and simply asked the building manager for help. I already had her WeChat, and she came to open the door for me. But the moment I stepped inside, right in the most prominent spot of the spacious living room, hung a wedding photo of Ethan and another woman. The manager's eyes widened in shock. I felt trapped and bewildered, my whole body trembling from the blow. I tried to force myself to stay calm, but my heart pounded so hard it felt like it would burst from my chest. Ethan drove back like the wind, stumbling as he came in, bracing himself on the door just to stand. He rushed to me, grabbed my hand, and hurried to explain. He had gotten the call from the manager, slammed the gas, and even ran several red lights just to make it back and explain immediately. He took a deep breath and said, "Nora, don't misunderstand. Rachel is your cousin, the one you asked me to look after. She's young and reckless and got caught up in a bet with someone. I only registered the marriage to go along with her. It all happened so suddenly that I didn't have time to tell you. But no matter what, I'm now a man who's been divorced. That's my fault. I'll punish myself with 3 shots of liquor and give you another share of the remaining company equity. However you want to punish me, I'll accept." I stared blankly around the room. What choice did I even have? Rachel is my uncle's daughter. Before he passed away, he asked me to take care of her. Before leaving the country, I had given Ethan a long list of things, including asking him to watch over Rachel. But I never imagined that someone who had always been so insignificant could suddenly step into the place of the main figure. It took me a long time to calm down. Ethan, full of regret, clung to my hand like a big dog begging for pity. Just then, the front door opened easily from the outside. Rachel walked in without even noticing me or Ethan, slipped off her shoes, set down her car keys, then habitually hung her handbag and coat on the rack. I glanced at the bag in her hand. It was the newest model from a luxury brand, not yet released domestically. To buy it must have taken considerable effort. I looked at Ethan with suspicion. He was just about to speak when Rachel finally saw us. Her face froze for an instant, but she quickly composed herself. Almost immediately, she put on a warm smile, walked over, hooked her arm through mine, and said sweetly, "Sis, while you weren't home, I borrowed your husband for a bit. You don't mind, right?" Then she suddenly covered her mouth as if realizing she had slipped. "Oh my, I really speak without thinking. Listen to the nonsense I just said." She tapped her head lightly, then quickly turned to Ethan with pleading eyes. Ethan hurried to comfort me, saying, "You're someone who handles big things. Of course you won't fuss over details, unlike her. Rachel would never grow up, would she?" "A child?" I couldn't help but laugh. She was only 3 years younger than me. I was just her cousin, not her aunt. Right after that, a few more girls came chirping into the house. Everyone slipped off their shoes and put on slippers with practiced ease. Some of them even went straight into the kitchen to pour water for the group. When they noticed me, they asked Rachel, "Who's this? Does she want plain water or juice?" Rachel immediately answered for me, "Just water is fine." I actually laughed out loud. This was clearly my house. The deed still bore my name. I was just about to open my mouth when Ethan quickly cut me off, explaining to Rachel's friends, "She's Rachel's cousin, just back from overseas to visit her." The girls all let out a sigh of relief. "Oh, so you're here to see Rachel. We thought something big had happened." Then they pointed to one girl in the group. "It's her birthday today. We plan to hold a party here, and more people will be coming later. brother-in-law won't be upset, right? The brother-in-law they spoke of was Ethan, but the sister they meant wasn't me. My mind went blank for a moment. So Ethan really had gotten married. I shook my head slightly, just wanting to leave this place as soon as possible. One of Rachel's classmates suddenly said, "I heard Rachel's cousin has been living abroad for years and is a college graduate. Rachel doesn't even dare to ask you for help when buying a bag. She always relies on brother-in-law to find someone to line up and pre-order it. I wonder what field you're working in. I just finished my master's but still haven't found an internship. I was hoping President Ethan could help me." I wanted nothing more than to leave quickly, so I replied, "Just ask your brother-in-law. He's far more capable than I am." Unexpectedly, the girl pleaded even more earnestly. "Please, cousin." I was too slow. All of Rachel's other friends already have internships that brother-in-law arranged at his company, and there's no spot left for me. Meeting you here today is such luck. Please, President Ethan, give me a chance. I shot Ethan a cold glance, catching the flicker of panic in his eyes. He wanted to say something, but swallowed the words. Instead, I handed the girl one of my business cards. "Send your resume to my email." As I turned to go upstairs, I suddenly noticed the walls crowded with portraits of Rachel. Even the cabinet by the dining table and the 5-drawer chest were covered in her photos. I let out a bitter laugh, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Rachel suddenly called after me. "Cousin, you must be tired after flying so far. The jet lag must be rough too. Later the party will get noisy and might disturb you, so maybe—" She didn't finish, but her meaning was clear. She wanted me gone. My patience finally wore thin. I went upstairs to lie down for a while. One of the girls in the group, quick-tongued, asked, "Why does cousin have to rest here? Isn't that inconvenient?" Seeing things spiraling, Ethan hurried to cut me off. "She's never seen you all being so rowdy before. Later, I'll take her home so she can rest. Everyone just enjoy yourselves." In that moment, Ethan said one thing right. I came back for bigger matters. It wasn't that I didn't care about these small things, it was just that I needed to rest first. Ethan and I went to the car. He opened the passenger door for me, but I slipped into the back seat on my own and closed my eyes to rest. After a long silence, I tilted my head and saw Ethan still frozen in place, holding the door open stiffly. I let out a mocking laugh. "Brother-in-law, do you really need me to invite you into the car?" Ethan looked even more embarrassed, quickly circling around to the driver's seat to start the engine. The whole ride, he kept sneaking glances at me in the rearview mirror, carefully gauging my expression. I pretended not to notice and went to the apartment near Ethan's company, the one I had bought long ago, just to rest during overtime. When I got out of the car, I saw several cleaning ladies already scrubbing inside. That place had always been my temporary retreat when I worked late. Today, because I suddenly decided to come back, Ethan had rushed to call people over to clean. He truly had been frantic and exhausted the entire day. I was drained and sleepy, yet I had nowhere to stay. With no other choice, I went to a nearby cafe to wait. After giving instructions to the cleaners, Ethan hurried to find me. He took hold of my hand that was clutching my coffee cup, his voice full of guilt. "Nora, I've made you suffer. Besides the shares, I'll do everything I can to make it up to you. I know I crossed the line badly this time, but I promise it won't happen again. In the beginning, when I dealt with Rachel, it was only because you asked me to look after her. That's why I cared about her at all. Who could have guessed it would become harder and harder to get away?" He quickly raised his hand as if swearing an oath. "But emotionally, I've never crossed the line. You're the one I love. You're the one I want to spend my whole life with. Do you feel guilty because you really have something to hide?" I suddenly asked. Ethan froze. My heart was filled with suspicion about everything he had done, yet he still dared to swear so earnestly, insisting his heart was pure. As for me, at that moment, all I wanted was to sleep. So I stood up to leave. Ethan rushed to grab my hand. "Where are you going? The apartment isn't ready yet. You'll have to wait a bit longer," he said, lowering his head in regret. I forced myself to meet his eyes. "You have a home, but you can't go back. Your wife has been turned into the other woman. Have I blamed you once? Right now I just want to sleep. Can you leave me in peace?" Ethan looked at me in panic. "Where are you going?" "A hotel." Without turning back, I walked straight out. He chased after me. Nora, don't be angry anymore. You're this upset, I really don't know what to do. Tell me, what will it take for you to forgive me? I didn't stop walking. If I tell you, will you actually do it? He nodded quickly, desperate. Finally, I stopped, turned, and looked straight at him. Beneath his calm exterior, I still saw the shadow of fear. Our eyes met. First, transfer the shares to me. You've mentioned it several times, and if I keep refusing, it'll seem unreasonable. But one portion isn't sincerity at all. It should be two. Since you've already lost all shame, why should I hold back? Ethan stared at me in shock. Didn't you say you were in a hurry to catch up on sleep? I smiled. Suddenly, I didn't feel tired anymore. Who told you to keep clinging to me without letting go? He let out a long breath of relief, and a look of reassurance finally appeared on his face. All right, I'll have the lawyer prepare the paperwork, I replied flatly. No need. I'll have my lawyer draft it. His eyes flashed with fear again. Nora, don't you trust me? My gaze was cold. You're not worth trusting. Nora, But I turned and walked away without looking back. A man who didn't even understand where his responsibilities lay was truly terrifying. The first thing I did after getting some sleep was to arrange a meeting with Ethan to complete the share transfer. When a man's guilt works better than his love, I had to strike while the iron was hot. After handing me the documents, Ethan's face darkened, and he passed me another folder. Take a look at this. I opened it. It was still a document transferring one share to me unconditionally, but the extra share I had demanded had now become two, with conditions. The condition was that after marriage, they would automatically revert to him, transferred back unconditionally. I looked at him, suspicious. What exactly do you mean by this? He lowered his eyes, refusing to meet mine. His long lashes cast a heavy shadow. When he finally raised his head, his usual coldness had returned. Nora, I understand you too well. Because of Rachel, you'll definitely grow distant from me. But what I did was only an unintentional mistake. You can't refuse to give me another chance. That was why he insisted on binding himself to me. My expression darkened as I stared calmly at him. Ethan and I were both cast-offs of our families, who had later joined forces to reclaim a portion of our inheritance and build a company that kept growing stronger. If he transferred 3 shares to me, I would become the majority shareholder, with enough power to even push him out of the company entirely. I truly couldn't understand him anymore. The fire in my heart, which had already died halfway, now seemed ready to flare up again. Ethan, on the other hand, looked as though a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He exhaled slowly, his eyes fixed on me with expectation. After a moment's hesitation, I asked anyway, "So when are you going to divorce her?" This time, I dropped all my urgent work to come back because I wanted to marry you. Surely you understand that, don't you? He froze, and after a long pause, shame crossed his face. Nora, I promised Rachel I'd divorce her in a year. I can't go back on that. A year? I was so shocked I couldn't find words. Instinctively, I blurted out, "Then doesn't that make me the official third party now?" Reputation was critical in business, and at this moment, Ethan and I were facing a massive contradiction. I stared at him in silence. This time, Ethan didn't apologize or try to explain. To him, that contract was enough to prove his sincerity. Since I had accepted it, I was expected to pay an equal price. In the end, I signed my name on the document. After all, one portion of shares was still being given to me unconditionally. Just as the lawyer was about to take the paperwork for processing, Rachel suddenly burst in. She yanked the documents from his hands, tore them apart, and flung the pieces into the air. Paper rained down like snow, covering my head. She then planted herself in front of Ethan as if to shield him, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Cousin, Ethan was only helping me. I don't know what nerve I touched to make you punish him like this. I really can't stand it. Matters of the heart should be talked out, not solved like this. What do you need shares for? Are you that greedy for money? Bookmark, go back." She wiped her tears and declared firmly, "Don't you secretly think there's something improper between me and Ethan? Fine. I admit it, I had bad intentions. I coveted my own brother-in-law. I'm such a manipulative mess. I'm a shameless woman. Does that satisfy you? If you're angry, then be angry at me. Give the shares back to Ethan. You shouldn't take that money." For a brief moment, A flicker of appreciation appeared on Ethan's otherwise cold face, but it vanished quickly. He snapped harshly, "Rachel, this is between me and your cousin. Stay out of it. From the moment I agreed to help you, I knew I'd have to bear the consequences." I had returned in such a rush that I truly didn't have the time to be entangled with them. So I said coldly, "Give me a fresh copy of the documents." Then I turned to the lawyer, who was still standing there in shock. "Do you still want to keep your job? If so, call security." Rachel came back to herself, tears still streaming. "No need for you to throw me out. I'll leave on my own." She cast a look at Ethan, who immediately stood up. "I'll walk you out." "Wait," I stopped him. "The document isn't signed yet." Ethan pressed his lips together, pulled out another folder, and signed it with a sour, reluctant face before handing it to me. I smiled. She really showed up at just the right time. "Tell me, how did she know what was in the contract? Did you tell her?" Then I added with a shrug, "Well, that makes sense. You two are husband and wife. Of course you'd discuss it." Ethan stiffened, about to explain, but Rachel tugged at his sleeve, signaling for him to take her away. He stayed frozen, staring blankly at me. Rachel stomped her foot, full of resentment, and stormed out. I didn't spare them another glance, lowering my head again to study the paperwork. Ethan remained there, stiff and unmoving for a long time. I had once helped Rachel, my younger cousin, in so many ways after her father passed away. I had paid off her mortgage, covered her mother's medical bills and Social Security, and even supported her through high school and college. When she studied abroad for 2 years on exchange, the tuition was outrageously expensive. She failed her entrance exams for graduate school at home, and overseas she couldn't even graduate, later switching to a visiting research program that cost another fortune. During all those years I helped her. My own life wasn't easy, especially in the beginning, when things were unbearably hard. Now that she had become a wealthy wife, of course I had to settle accounts with her. I didn't think she would deny such a trivial sum. I went to her workplace, but she wasn't there. One of her colleagues gestured discreetly toward a flower bed outside the window. Rachel was on the phone, her face heavy with worry. Instantly I sensed something was wrong. I switched on my recorder and walked closer. "That bet. Heaven knows, earth knows, you know and I know. It must never get out. Remember, if Ethan ever finds out, you're finished." "What? A year? You'll never be able to hold him for a whole year." "But that kind cousin of yours can't tolerate even a grain of sand in her eye. She'll walk away on her own. When that happens, all you'll need to do is wait for the seat to be yours." These days, morality is nothing but a shackle. What successful woman doesn't have some schemes? One thing Rachel said was right. Maybe I was too straightforward. That night, I brought a professional photographer with me back to the house Ethan and I once shared. Facing their wedding photo and all the traces of their life together, I took picture after picture until I was exhausted. When I got home, I unexpectedly fell ill. A high fever left me delirious. I knew Ethan came to see me, though I couldn't sit up. He carefully asked the maid about my condition, then went into the kitchen himself to make porridge and a few light dishes for me. Afterward, he sat quietly by my bed for a long time. "Why did you take those pictures? In all the years I've known you, I've never begged you for anything. This time, I'm begging you not to make this public. Don't humiliate Rachel. You've already gone this far. Don't throw it all away. Rachel is a good girl. She won't fight you for anything. Objectively speaking, don't you think her values are correct? Didn't you used to care for her so much? I've already bought you a new home. Let's just end it here." He sighed. "Honestly, I regret it too. But this really is just a small matter. Can't you stop being so stubborn?" When I finally woke up, there was a housing contract beside my pillow, the purchase price still blank. Next to it lay a signed blank check and a note, written in Ethan's flowing hand. "Fill in whatever you want, as long as it makes you feel better. Anyway, this money will sooner or later be yours." A smiling face was sketched at the end. The house, including furnishings, was worth $15 million. But on the check, I wrote $50 million. As soon as my fever eased, I arranged to meet Ethan to transfer the deed. The moment he saw me, his face stiffened, but then he quickly softened, reaching to take my hand. I pulled away coldly. While waiting for our number to be called, he stepped aside to a quiet corner to take a phone call. Just as I went to fill my cup with hot water, I overheard him. Yes, the amount is a bit much, but it's fine, I understand her. It's only because she feels so insecure that she values money this way. You're a good girl, not everyone thinks about money like she does. In the stillness, his voice carried clearly. I clearly heard the voice on the other end of the line. It was Rachel. When Ethan turned and saw me standing right behind him, his face stiffened, and he quickly hung up. I half smiled at him. What's wrong feeling the money slip away? I thought men like you disdained talking about money, but it turns out you gossip behind my back too. Ethan hurried to explain. It's not what you think. You're misunderstanding, taking one part of the story and twisting it. I shook my head. That $50 million isn't just for the house. It also covers the years I spent supporting Rachel. Think of it as you redeeming her on her behalf. Congratulations, now both the house and the woman are yours. Ethan's face turned a mottled shade of purple. The way you talk is too harsh. It's fine, I replied coldly. Sooner or later you'll find someone whose values match yours. Wait for her, brother-in-law. At my words, Ethan blurted out my name, Nora. But I remembered what Rachel had once said, that I would walk away on my own and all she had to do was pick up what was left. They liked to keep things ambiguous, so I deliberately chose not to expose them, simply waiting and watching. On Rachel's birthday, she invited me to her party, but I flatly refused. In Ethan's office, I found him standing by the filing cabinet while Rachel clung tightly to his shirt, practically pressing herself against him. What do I do? What do I do? In the past, every year my cousin celebrated my birthday and gave me expensive gifts. Now she won't even look at me. How am I supposed to live like this? Ethan gently patted her head while continuing to search through documents. Then apologized to her. I'll go with you. I knocked on the half-closed door, and immediately the two of them jumped apart. In Ethan's company, he was my lover. Among Rachel's friends, he was her husband. He really did change roles with remarkable ease. Hearing my knock, I pushed the door open. Rachel greeted me calmly. Cousin? I acted as though I hadn't heard her, handing Ethan a folder instead. Brother-in-law, here's what you needed. His hand trembled slightly as he took the papers. At that moment, another employee walked in. President Ethan, Director Ethan, you're both here. Perfect. President Tran's golden anniversary party is coming up, and he sent an invitation. He'd like the two of you to attend together. Do you have time that day? Of course, Ethan answered immediately. Such an important invitation must be accepted, no matter what. At the same time, I said firmly, no, we can't go. That party only invites married couples or partners of more than 15 years. We don't qualify. Ethan's face froze, while Rachel's eyes reddened. The employee mumbled, but you two have been together for more than 15 years. That should count. I smiled faintly and shook my head. The time is enough, yes, but the other requirement is not. Ethan's face went pale. On Rachel's birthday, my grandmother was bedridden and asked me to personally deliver a gift to her. In the end, I went. The party was lively and boisterous. Someone raised their wedding album, pointed to a photo, and said, I'm a photographer. I can tell this kiss shot was staged. They must have been too shy in front of the camera to really kiss. Never mind, why don't you two kiss right now so I can capture it properly? The crowd immediately began to cheer them on, pushing them closer together. Rachel lost her balance and fell into Ethan's arms. He held her firmly, both of them smiling brightly as the shouts grew louder. Rachel rose on tiptoe to kiss him, accidentally bumping his chin. Ethan was about to play along by lowering his head to kiss her forehead, but the crowd jostled them. In the end, their lips pressed tightly together. For a moment, Ethan's eyes widened in shock, forgetting to pull away, until Rachel threw her arms around his neck and deepened the kiss. The crowd erupted. The moment Ethan glanced outside and saw me standing at the edge of the crowd, he immediately pushed Rachel away. His face turned cold as he tried to squeeze through the people to reach me, but Rachel panicked, clutching tightly at him and shaking her head again and again. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then gave up. Only sending me a look meant to calm me. Just then, one of Rachel's old college friends spotted me. Back when I had helped Rachel with her study abroad applications, I had gotten to know them. They pulled me into the center of the crowd and openly shared everything I had done for Rachel. People sighed in admiration, saying if they had such a sister, they could live 15 fewer years and still be content. Ethan's face grew complicated. Rachel, with tears streaming down her cheeks, turned to everyone and said, "It was my fault. I made my cousin angry." I replied evenly, "At fault? For what? How come I don't know?" Rachel choked up, even her tears freezing on her face. Not far away, a familiar voice rang out. It was President Tran's son. "Nora, why are you here? Ethan too? You two skipped my parents' golden anniversary celebration, only to throw your own party? Do you find them too old and boring?" Then, half joking, half serious, he added, "The rule was that only couples of over 15 years could attend, and you two pretended you didn't qualify? Really?" The once lively laughter abruptly died. I turned to Ethan. "Go on, explain." For the first time, panic showed on his usually composed face. "Paper can't wrap fire forever." He sighed, ready to say something, but after opening his mouth several times, not a single word came out. At that moment, Rachel stepped forward. She forced herself to hold back her humiliation, her face set in false bravery. "It was me. All of it was because of me. I fell in with bad company and made a bet. Brother-in-law Ethan only went to register the marriage to help me out of trouble. I never thought it would cause such consequences. I regret it deeply. I'm sorry, cousin. I'm sorry, brother-in-law. I've taken responsibility now. Please don't blame him anymore. He's a good man. Please treasure him." Someone began clapping, and soon others turned their eyes toward me, waiting for me to say something. I only gave a cold, mocking laugh. After the performance ended, Ethan came to find me, his voice seething with suppressed anger. "It was you who called Tran, wasn't it? Even Rachel thinks so. Don't tell me this was just a coincidence." Looking at the stranger Ethan had become, I shook my head. If breaking up can solve it, why would I bother creating such trouble? Ethan grew even more furious. "You always stand on the moral high ground. How could you so easily forgive us, a pair of shameless cheaters? Revenge would be more like your true nature." I let out a bitter laugh. "You've never once doubted Rachel's motives, have you? Do you really think a naive girl could be so harmless?" I suddenly remembered the recording I had, her words echoing in my ears. "Morality is just a shackle. A successful woman must have schemes." I had planned to find the right moment to let Ethan hear it. But now, did timing even matter? I could hold on to a man, but I couldn't save his soul. Whether I released it or not would simply depend on my mood. In the basement parking lot, Ethan and Rachel stood facing each other. His face was dark and cold. "At the start, I thought no matter what, I would bear it all for you. But things spun out of control. From now on, I'll make it up to you in another way." Rachel suddenly threw herself into his arms, sobbing. Ethan stumbled back 2 steps in surprise, but then wrapped his arms tightly around her. Through her tears, she cried, "Ethan, I never imagined you'd take a silly bet of a small girl like me so seriously, let alone go this far. I'm already so grateful. Let me make it up to you. My cousin must still be angry, right? It was my fault for ruining your relationship. I'll go to her and explain." Ethan shook his head. "She's smart. There's no need to explain. She's only making things hard for you on purpose." I stepped out from the shadows. Ethan saw me, but he still didn't release Rachel. He looked straight at me, calm, without the slightest trace of guilt. I pulled out my phone and started a video call with Tran. "So why did you suddenly show up where Ethan and I were today?" Tran gave a short, mocking laugh. "Didn't I already say I was drunk and went looking for the bathroom? How did it end up turning into some melodramatic scandal?" The Tran family had power and prestige. Tran himself would never stoop so low as to collude with me in fabricating a story or putting on a show. Ethan's eyes widened in shock, and for the first time I realized just how blind he really was. He doubted those who didn't deserve suspicion, while the ones who were truly questionable, he trusted completely. In the end, it was only an affair. Favoritism clouded his heart, and that was why he misjudged everything. I hung up, fixing my eyes on Ethan. Yes, there are things in this world more important than money, but only if the man is worthy. I returned to the company to prepare for handing over my work before continuing abroad to handle business. I appointed another deputy finance director to assist me, overseeing the headquarters operations. From now on, every major and minor decision in the company would have to go through me. Ethan sensed the power and urgency in my arrangements and began to waver. He stood at my office door, wanting to knock, hesitating, then walking away. When he finally appeared again, he was holding a bright red property deed. "Divorce," he said, then sank to his knees, holding up a diamond ring to me. "Marry me." I stayed silent for a long time before suddenly laughing. "Didn't you already propose once? Why do it again now?" His eyes were bloodshot, shaking his head. "It's different. I made mistakes, and I need your forgiveness." "Did Rachel agree to this yet?" I asked. Ethan stiffened. "What does she have to do with this? Weren't the two of you always discussing things together?" On his face, a flicker of unease passed. "Back then, I was a little muddled. I thought since she was your family, it wouldn't matter. So when we talked, I accidentally revealed a few things. That's how those misunderstandings happened." I half smiled, pretending to be indifferent. "All it takes is marrying me, and that contract immediately takes effect." Ethan grew earnest. "Nora, I know myself well. I have ability, but not much ambition. I've always wanted to build a foundation and then enjoy peace. But you're the one who always wants to move forward. You're the one who should lead the company. Even after marriage, if you decide to kick me out, I'll still be a shareholder, still receiving dividends. Besides, I have the work I love. I'm an engineer. I can run the research division, develop new products for the company. Who knows, maybe that would help us grow even more." I smiled brilliantly. His words sounded sincere, but his clenched hands betrayed him. He didn't really want to let go of power. He was a man, after all. Only women could so easily abandon their careers to return to family. But given the current situation, unless Ethan made a grand enough gesture to move me, we would go our separate ways, and the company's future would fall into uncertainty. Things had already slipped beyond his control. The situation was far more complicated than he had imagined, and so he could only cut away the diseased limb, no matter how painful. "I'll marry you," I answered firmly. Joy spread across Ethan's face, his smile overflowing with relief and satisfaction. He slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. "Thank you for agreeing to marry me a second time. But I have a condition," I said. Ethan flinched instinctively. "I need us to register our marriage today." I smiled faintly. "There's only today." Whether he could manage it or not was up to him. Ethan stared at me in disbelief, suspicion flickering in his eyes. I added, "Once we register, we won't announce it right away. We'll wait until the wedding ceremony to make it public." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean by that?" I only asked, "Do you agree or not?" "Of course I agree," he said. From 18 to 28, luckily, I hadn't wasted my most precious years just to see through one man. It's never easy to truly recognize someone's nature. 15 years meant nothing. Some people who could live their entire lives without ever seeing clearly. With the marriage certificate in hand, I went straight to the lawyer to process the transfer of 2 shares. At the same time, I reinforced the company's staff and tightened my control. I also invited the lawyer to draft and sign a prenuptial agreement with Ethan. Ridiculous as it was, 3 of his shares had already landed in my hands. How could I not hold on tightly? The law had already provided rules for premarital property, but I still wanted everything written out clearly. This was, after all, my compensation for the years of endurance and sacrifice. The cost I had paid was by no means small. And once the subject of premarital property came up, Ethan inevitably mentioned his first marriage. He tried to reassure me. That wedding was fake. The assets between Rachel and me were clearly divided before marriage. What was mine has always stayed mine. Rachel isn't unreasonable. I couldn't hold back a sharp retort. She doesn't ask you for money, and in your eyes that makes her reasonable? Your standards for others are pitifully low. You helped her, shouldn't she be the one paying you back? Ethan froze, and after a long pause, he answered awkwardly, "I thought of her as your family. That's why I treated her better." I was firm. From today on, she and I have nothing to do with each other. If this bridge no longer exists, do you still think it's necessary to keep in contact with her? "No," Ethan said after a brief daze. Then he added, "But you don't have to be so absolute. After all, she is your cousin." The corner of my lips curled into a mocking smile. "Yes, I do have a very good cousin." Ethan hurried to explain again. That situation? It was my fault for stepping in. But things were really urgent at the time. He once more repeated the story of Rachel's so-called crisis. The one I had already heard countless times. This time he went into detail. She had gotten tangled up with a spoiled young heir named Victor, who wanted to settle things with her boyfriend by racing cars. Rachel knew Ethan had once been an amateur racer, so she begged him to intervene. Victor didn't believe him since he had never heard of Ethan before. That was when Rachel proposed the marriage registration and wedding photos as proof. Victor was notorious for his vices, and Ethan had stepped in to protect Rachel. He had told me this story so many times I was sick of hearing it. Still, I gave him a warning. Victor isn't someone you should get involved with. They say he's neck-deep in every kind of vice. Stay away from him, or you'll bring trouble on yourself. I only said it to keep the conversation from dying in awkward silence, not out of any goodwill. I had already gotten what I wanted. There was no need to turn hostile so quickly. After all, both Ethan and I were fighting for advantage against our families. He had contributed more money, and the company had been founded mostly with his capital, which was why he was chairman. Now, because of his feelings, he had handed me shares. Out of courtesy, I owed him at least some face. But that night, when Ethan wanted to stay at my place, I rejected him outright. I explained coldly, I don't really know what kind of person Rachel is, nor how she lived during her years abroad. My journey until today has been excruciatingly hard. I won't risk catching some disease she might have brought back. It's not worth it. Ethan blinked, stunned, and then finally reacted, his face flushed crimson. Nora, what do you take me for? How could I ever get involved with Rachel? I answered calmly. The day I came home unexpectedly, I found the house suddenly filled with women's things that weren't mine. So the two of them really had been sneaking around in my home? Ethan's eyes reddened. In your eyes, am I really that low? I answered coldly. You say that as if you actually know the difference between what you should and shouldn't do. Then I added, go get a checkup, do every single STD test and bring me the results. We'll talk again in 3 months. Grandma invited me over for dinner, and of course, Rachel was there too, though she didn't look well. She expected me to blow up with anger, maybe even break up with Ethan, but when I didn't, I'm sure it left her disappointed. That, too, was part of my growth. In life, you need both firmness and flexibility. You can't always cling to black and white, right and wrong. That was how I avoided falling into her trap, though I had nearly stumbled. I looked at the cousin I had once sheltered as she grew up and gave her a faint, knowing smile. Grandma kept putting food into my bowl, coaxing gently. Sisters shouldn't hold grudges overnight. Rachel's just a thoughtless child. Don't take it to heart. Clearly, she was trying to mediate. Some relatives always like to play peacemaker, but the more you gave in, the more they pushed. Back then, when my parents had started their careers in my grandfather's company, they had been given shares. Later, after they died suddenly, my uncle clung to those shares and made things difficult for me. What I had was all earned by myself, while Grandma and the maternal side of the family only sat back and reaped the benefits. Even so, I still smiled at her. Let's just think about happy things, like how much money I made this time coming back, or how I'll be getting married soon. Grandma, just wait for the day our 4 generations reunite. Then I turned my gaze on Rachel. Didn't you once say you'd get married before me? But there's still no sign of it, is there? Oh wait, no. I almost forgot. You already. Rachel quickly cut me off, so she did no shame after all. Normally she put on an act of innocence, pretending to be worldly and insightful, wielding her contrived persona as strength. But it only worked on men. As for the fact that she had once actually married my fiancé, of course that was something I couldn't mention in front of Grandma. I stared at her until her eyes grew red. Then I deliberately taunted her. Do you want to be my bridesmaid? My wedding gown is a custom couture piece from the very brand you like. The bridesmaid dresses are from the same line. You could even wear it later to parties. It's quite convenient. Oh. I covered my mouth, pretending to suddenly remember. I nearly forgot. You can't be a bridesmaid. In my hometown, women who've already been married aren't allowed. I laughed. Rachel knew that crying in front of Grandma would do no good. Her tears only brimmed at the edges of her eyes, refusing to fall. This time, they were real tears, the tears of someone whose carefully woven dreams had just been shattered. On the wedding day, everything was flawless. Every ceremony, every decoration in the hall was arranged exactly as I had envisioned and hoped for all those years. The groom was still the man I had once longed for, as if nothing had ever happened, as if the wind had blown through without leaving a trace. Ethan and I stood waiting on stage while the host droned on, recounting our story. Every so often, he glanced at me, silently asking if it was time to exchange rings. I shook my head. I had to wait. I refused to believe she wouldn't make a move. Sure enough, Ethan's phone rang, the very phone I had told him to keep with him at all times. While the crowd was distracted, he secretly glanced at the screen. Just one look, and his whole body went rigid. Panic overtook him. Several times he opened his mouth to speak to me, but I ignored him completely. At last, he had no choice but to raise his voice. "Nora, Rachel is trying to kill herself. It's about her life. I have to go." The moment the phone rang, I had already switched on the mic hidden on me. Ethan's loud voice boomed out, drowning even the MC's words. The hall below erupted in whispers. Ethan himself froze. He had intended to slip away quietly, leaving me alone to face all the guests. Just like the way he had once secretly gone to register his marriage with Rachel, humiliating me and putting me in an impossible position. But how could I let myself fall into the same trap twice? Calmly, I asked, "Who did you just say is trying to kill herself that you need to rush to?" I spoke as if I hadn't heard clearly, but everyone in the audience heard it perfectly. "Rachel, Rachel." Her name spread like wildfire. Ethan clenched his teeth. "Nora, no matter what, we've already registered our marriage. A wedding ceremony isn't more important than a life." He didn't care that my mic was still on, that every word was spilling out into the speakers. How could I pass up this chance? "Rachel is my cousin. I've always supported her," I said firmly. "There are many of her relatives here today. Then tell me, why, if she wants to die, does she call you?" In the crowd, one of my close friends shouted, "Exactly. Why call him now of all times? Isn't it obvious she just wants to ruin the wedding? Unbelievable. What kind of mistress does this? Truly disgraceful." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the guests. Ethan still ground his teeth. "A life is no small matter. I have to go." I gripped his arm, my eyes like ice. "Before you leave, at least tell me, what exactly is your relationship with her?" "No." Ethan shoved my hand away without a word and turned to leave. I let my body sag, feigning collapse, and nearly fell until my bridesmaid caught me. Struggling, I stepped onto the stage. Choking back sobs, I finally forced the words out. "Everyone, look, this is a marriage of 3. Isn't it far too crowded?" I drew a long, deep breath, then lifted my voice with renewed strength. "A man this muddle-headed, this unwilling to shoulder responsibility, he is unfit to steer a company. And since today every shareholder is present, why not take this chance? As the majority shareholder, I now formally call for the replacement of the CEO." That wedding had gathered not only shareholders but also important clients, many with their families in attendance. No man or woman liked being made a fool of, and with their spouses and children watching, none could stay neutral. My proposal won absolute support. A wedding became a shareholders' meeting. The CEO was ousted. My goal was achieved. Had I not seized this moment, who knew how long I would have had to wait for a legitimate, unassailable transition of power without public gossip. By the time Ethan rushed back, the crowd had already dispersed. My secretary and I were calmly discussing the next steps. He stumbled toward me, panting. "Rachel's fine. Luckily I got there in time." I let out a cold laugh. In time? Faster than the police? Faster than an ambulance? Or more useful than a doctor? Ethan's face darkened. "Nora, when did you become so cold?" I answered evenly. "From the moment the person closest to me betrayed me." He sighed. "I know Rachel wronged you. She developed feelings she never should have had for me." I cut him off icily. "You're only realizing that now? I had already realized it long ago." "You're not pretending not to know, are you?" I asked. Ethan was struck dumb, then muttered, "Still, she's your cousin. You should be a little more tolerant of her." Even in the middle of my work, I looked up and answered calmly. "Someone like Rachel has never needed tolerance. If she did, she wouldn't have done what she did. You're telling me to be generous? Be careful, it may come back to fall on you instead." The moment my words left my lips, Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the message, and finally someone had informed him the board had temporarily suspended him from his post. His eyes went bloodshot. Nora, you're taking advantage of someone's downfall, I smiled. Now you know how it feels to be betrayed by the person closest to you. Slowly, I added, the truth is, I didn't even make you lose a cent. I just added a bit more weight onto my own shoulders. Ethan's gaze on me was like looking at a stranger, just as mine had been when I first returned home. I sneered. At that wedding, the groom ran off halfway. I thought this time you'd punish yourself with 3 drinks and step down willingly. That's why I had it all prepared for you. He looked at me in disbelief, stumbling back 2 steps, his eyes sharp and cold. So you planned this from the very start? I stopped him immediately. How could I have known Rachel would attempt suicide? Don't spout nonsense that makes me sound conniving. Then I laughed bitterly. The schemer has always been someone else, not me. Just wait and watch the real show. I added, being competent isn't the same as being calculating. The two are worlds apart, but I doubt you can even tell the difference. Ethan collapsed into a chair, his face both weary and resentful. I've already paid the price, but you keep stabbing at me like this. It's not a good look. I laughed outright. That? You call that stabbing? Have you even heard what sharp words truly sound like? I've already been holding back for your sake. I paused, then continued. King Zhou played with fire and mocked his vassals. You treat marriage as a joke, truly the bearing of a foolish ruler. Then my voice turned scathing. Put nicely, you're a man ruled by sentiment. But really, isn't it just irresponsibility? Ethan's face flushed as he snapped back. How am I irresponsible? It's because I take responsibility too seriously that things ended like this. It's because I valued my promise to Rachel too much that we're in this mess, isn't it? At that, I finally clenched my teeth, fury breaking free. Keeping one's word is indeed a virtue, words worth 1,000 gold. But tell me, who deserves those promises, and who doesn't? Do you really not know, or are you just pretending to be blind? Ethan stared at me in shock. From the moment he registered his marriage with Rachel, I had never once exploded in anger. So he thought I had no temper. But in that instant, my true emotions erupted, though soon enough I reined them in, my tone dripping with sarcasm again. The Jade Maiden lies in her chamber at night while the Chu King enters her city. You've already sunk to being a foolish ruler. Your retribution is still yet to come. Ethan's eyes on me were tangled with sorrow, mockery, and something close to finality. After that quarrel, more than a month passed without us seeing each other. When we finally met again, he had regained his calm. He handed me a stack of medical reports. All the tests you made me do? I did them. Every result was negative. And you? His last word dragged out, laced with ridicule. Of course I had come prepared. I laid out 3 sets of reports in front of him. These are from the past 3 months, one for each month. I have nothing to worry about. This was only to prevent you from starting baseless trouble. Unlike you, I would never casually go and register a marriage with someone else. A shadow of grief flickered across Ethan's face. His eyes reddened as he reached to take my hand, but missed, clutching only the hem of my sleeve. Nora, I know I was wrong. From today, let's live well together. The company is yours. I'll focus on building a research and development team. I gave a cold laugh. Better bring me 3 consecutive months of medical reports first. Some diseases take a long time to show, then we'll talk. Ethan fell silent, at a loss for words. As for what would happen afterward, I hadn't truly decided. But I knew one thing for certain, there was someone I could rely on. Whether or not I would divorce him, I hadn't made up my mind. It was indeed troublesome. Yet at this moment, the company's power rested securely in my hands. That power gave me the feeling of control, and it was exhilarating. Without the old burdens tying me down, I was free to devote myself to something greater. Another month passed. On Rachel's social media, a photo appeared, a pregnancy test with 2 lines, captioned, "This time the lie has become truth." He and I are no longer strangers, no longer unrelated. At last, fate has smiled on me once. Days later, I went to Ethan's office. He was slumped over his desk, one hand bracing his forehead. When he heard me, he lifted his head. His eyes were bloodshot, terrifyingly so. Then he turned his chair, showing me only his back. I thought to myself, by now Ethan was already a dead piece on the chessboard, only refusing to admit defeat. I turned to leave, but suddenly he sprang up and came toward me. For the first time, there was genuine humility on his face. Nora, I'm sorry. I never meant to betray you. At the wedding, when you turned it into a shareholders' meeting and stripped me of power, I thought, since my reputation was already ruined, I might as well let it become truth. Just that once. It was really just that once, out of spite. I never expected her to end up pregnant. I don't love her. At first, I was only playing the hero, thinking the greater the sacrifice, the more noble I seemed. That's why I did something so absurd. Later, yes, I was briefly captivated by her, but in the end, she and I never shared ideals, never truly matched. I know I was wrong. I gave a sly smile. Then tell her to get rid of the baby. Just this once, never again. Ethan's eyes lit up with such relief he seemed almost frantic, not knowing what to do with himself. But soon I heard the news. Rachel refused. No matter how Ethan threatened or coaxed, she didn't budge. Worse yet, she was carrying twins. The odds had been so low that Ethan had people secretly investigate. That was when he discovered the truth. Before she ever touched him, Rachel had procured a prescription drug used to treat infertility, a type that stimulated ovulation. She had timed everything precisely to her fertile days, seducing him with a calculated plan to conceive in one try. Ethan declared bluntly that he would give the children nothing, that Rachel would have to raise them alone. As for me, I placed divorce papers right on his desk. He stormed into my office in fury. Staff were present, and I didn't ask them to leave. Right in front of everyone, I said coldly, "Children born outside marriage still have legal rights. Even if you write them out of your will, you'll still be required to pay child support. And if it goes to court, that sum will be small. I will not be the one paying to raise your illegitimate children." I had warned him long ago that Rachel wasn't simple, that he should stay away. But had he ever listened to even half of what I said? I told him I'd cut ties with her, yet he kept going back. Why? That day, what did he say to me? He told me to be generous. Generous he was with her. Generous enough to let her ensnare him. And in our prenuptial agreement, it was clearly written. An adulterer, someone unfaithful, must pay compensation to the one they've wronged. It was time to end things. "Don't make this uglier than it already is," I told him. Ethan stared at me for a long while, before finally whispering, "So everything was in your control all along, wasn't it?" I gave a mocking smile. "I didn't push you into this." And so Ethan and I officially divorced. By then, his assets were no longer abundant, his spending no longer lavish. Gone were the days when his words were full of grand promises of giving me shares. During the property division, he only handed me 2 large luxury apartments. I laughed bitterly. "How frugal you've become, Mr. Ethan. Saving money to buy formula for your kids, aren't you?" His face stiffened. He said nothing. The day we received the divorce papers, the sun was blazing bright. I decided it was time to finally reveal that recording. As we parted, I deliberately tugged on his sleeve. He turned back, surprised, a glimmer of joy flashing across his face. "Nora, I knew it. You still can't bear to leave me." I turned the volume up and played the recording. The voice that filled the air was nothing like Rachel's usual image of innocence. It was calculating, mature, and cold. "That bet. Heaven knows, earth knows, I know. This must never get out. Remember, if Ethan finds out, you're finished. What, take him within a year? You can't do it. But my dear cousin, she can't stand a speck of sand in her eyes. She'll leave on her own. All you have to do is wait for your seat. Morality these days is nothing but chains. What successful woman doesn't have a few schemes?" The voice was different, yet undeniably Rachel's. Ethan's face went pale as paper, his eyes hollow, as though he couldn't hear at all. Only when the whispers of those around us grew louder did he finally come back to himself. Looking at me, tears spilled from his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me earlier? You had evidence all along." My lips curled into an irrepressible smile. "How many times did I warn you? And you never took heed. How was I supposed to know you were so stupid you needed hard proof before you'd believe it?" Not long after, Ethan left the city. He never married Rachel. He kept his word. If she wanted child support, she had to go to court. Whatever the judge ordered, he paid. As for Rachel, she was shunned. The same crowd that used to gather at my house for her parties now all claimed they had only heard of her, never truly known her. Grandma's family barred her from their home, and even scolded that, in the old days, someone like her would have been drowned in a pond. Rachel pounded on their door in madness, finally driving Grandma into a heart attack. Only then did things quiet down. At the company, I held everything firmly. Anyone who dared to deny me would be seen as covering up the existence of illegitimate children, merely looking for an excuse to lash out. Afterward, every month I received postcards from all over the world. Sometimes they held just a few words, sometimes only a postmark. I knew they were from Ethan. Long ago I had once told him that the most romantic thing, in my eyes, was sending postcards during a journey. Back then, he hadn't listened to me for a long time. But now, even that small detail he remembered. I had reached marriageable age. Ethan couldn't keep his promise of forever. But I had already gained so much, true friends and companions worthy of holding my hand through life. Once a love is destined never to be, once you finally understand, everything suddenly becomes clear. Epilogue. Ethan, I never thought regret could feel this heavy, like a stone lodged deep in my chest. Every step I took after losing Nora was a reminder of how blind I had been, how easily I had let myself be deceived, and how cruelly I had hurt the one person who stood by me through everything. When I close my eyes, I can still see her the day she played that recording, the coldness in her eyes, the mocking smile on her lips, and the proof I could no longer deny. Rachel's voice, calculating, scheming, stripping away every excuse I had clung to. In that moment, I wanted nothing more than to claw back time, to go back to the man I had once promised to be for Nora. But it was too late. I had betrayed her, not just with my actions, but with my blindness. She warned me countless times. She tried to pull me away from the pit I was stumbling into. And still, I didn't listen. I thought I was being noble, responsible, even heroic, protecting Rachel. In truth, I was nothing but a fool, drunk on the illusion of sacrifice, too blind to see that the person I should have protected was already standing by my side. The divorce papers felt like knives. Watching Nora walk away with her head held high, the weight of the company secured in her hands, while I, once so full of pride, was stripped down to nothing. She had the strength to turn even her wedding day into a battlefield and win. And me? I was left with nothing but shame. Rachel, I never loved her. That much is true. Whatever fleeting fascination there was, it was shallow and poisonous. She was a storm I should have never let inside my life, and yet I let her wreck everything. Now, every month I send Nora postcards. Pathetic, maybe, but it's the only way I can tell her I still remember. That I remember her words, the little details she once shared with me, the things I was too arrogant to care about back then. She may never forgive me. She may laugh at my attempts. But it's all I have left to remind her and myself that I once knew what it meant to love her, even if I failed so miserably at it. I live with the knowledge that I destroyed the best thing I ever had. Nora deserved a man who would protect her, cherish her, and never make her doubt. And I, God help me, I chose wrong at every turn. Regret doesn't fade, it festers. And the cruelest part is knowing that even if I spend the rest of my life paying for it, it will never be enough.